Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 265 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. My name's Anthony Renna. This is a special episode. We're calling it the Hostile Takeover. Alwyn Cosgrove is going to interview me. We've never done this on the Strength Coach Podcast. We're coming up on 12 years on October 25th, and no one's really ever interviewed me on the Strength Coach Podcast, so we figured this would be a good time. My book is out, Be Like the Best. It pre-order started yesterday, Monday, October 14th. It releases on October 18th, which is Friday. And if you order it this week, you'll get some pretty cool bonuses, which include, basically, you'll get the Kindle, ebook, and PDF versions right away. So you don't have to wait for the hard copy to come in the mail to start digging in. You'll also get access to 10 of the audio interviews that I did for the book, which is pretty cool. Because, obviously we edit for the book, so you'll get the full interviews. And then we're doing what's called a Be Like workbook. And basically in the book, it's 50 interviews with top fitness professionals on success. And what we did was a Be Like, which is basically an action step or a challenge after each interview. And it was based on something that I took away from the interview. So we're giving away the PDF workbook as well when that comes out next week. So I'm not going to talk about the book right here because Alan's going to interview me. We're going to talk all about it. So lots of things to get to. So let's get on the phone with Alwyn Cosgrove. All right, now it's time for the Body by Boyle Online.com. Hit the gym with the Strength Coach segment. Become an insider to Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning with staff meetings, in-services, and complete access to the MBSC programs. All right, today I got a special episode. Hold. I can't. I'm not going to interview myself. All right, guys, I got Alwyn Cosgrove on here to interview me about my new book, Be Like the Best. Alwyn, thanks for doing this.
Exactly. This is a new segment on the Strength Coach Podcast called Turn the Tables, where after, I think I saw this week, there's been 4 million downloads of the Strength Coach Podcast, Ant.
Yes.
And you have never been interviewed.
That's it. You're right.
So what I decided is that we should have one of the smartest guys in the industry come on to the podcast, interview you, and I couldn't get that guy, so instead I'm going to do it. Deal?
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to this.
So I'll tell you, like the book's coming out. I'm going to get into that in a second. It's something that no one has ever asked you, I don't think. With all the guests you've had on the Strength Coach Podcast and everybody you've interviewed, who was your favorite one?
Wow, I gotta, I gotta go with some females. Not just because she's your wife, but one of my favorites is Rachel Cosgrove, Krista Duran. Those are two. I love just having those guys on the show.
Okay, I mean that's good. Yeah, I mean I was thinking like a male guest. Like who would be like your favorite male guest?
I guess maybe I don't want to say Mike again, but he's on the show. He's on every time. Maybe I don't know, Daniel Coyle.
Yep. Well, I mean, like not like someone else, like someone like not like completely from the U.S. or someone like a male, but not like someone from the U.S.
Okay.
Is what I was really looking for.
I got to go three-way tie, maybe like Derek Hansen, John Berardi, and Charlie Weingrove, all Canadians. Right
but
there.
In the USA though, just the USA, not North America. But
not North
the
America.
USA.
Oh, okay, not North America. Jeez.
So from the USA, but not born in the USA.
Oh, Alistair McCaw, great guy out of South Africa, actually.
Okay. So in the USA, but not born from USA, but in the Northern Hemisphere, not like Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know if Giovanni Rosselli was born in Italy and moved here, so that's more Northern Hemisphere. So maybe he might be a good one.
It's like so he's like in Europe, right? But what about like not like somebody like who's from Europe, who's really good in maybe like Northern Europe, like in the UK, who speaks English as their first language, and then move like to California. Something like maybe just one or two of those guys.
That would have to be you, Alwyn Cosgrove.
Oh, no, that's embarrassing. I wasn't expecting that one. Oh well. Thank you very much for that. Wow, what an honor. All right, buddy. Congratulations on the book. How's it feel to be an author?
It's funny that no one's asked it like that actually. And it really kind of segues into this idea about like when you say how's it feel to be an author. This whole idea about self-limiting beliefs, I was telling the story at my lecture at Perform Better as well. And when I first came up with this idea was when I was launching my website. And I had to come up with a lead magnet, which is basically what am I going to offer you in exchange for your email address? And so I came up with, what do people know me for? They know me for interviews, audio interviews. So I'll do some audio interviews, but I didn't want to do the X's and O's, because that's what I do twice a month on the Strength Coach podcast. I wanted to have something more in line with my mission, and which is to help fitness professionals become successful, make an impact in the world. And so I thought, let me do some interviews on success with people in the industry who are in kind of different segments. So I called you. You were one of them who, is running, Results Fitness, but also really Results Fitness University and changing the way fitness is done, working on businesses. Mike Boyle, who has one of the, first for-profit sports performance companies. Gerald Coopersmith.
A lot of people don't know that part.
Yeah. Gerald Coopersmith, who has, ran Equinox Fitness Training Institute, Nike Performance Council.
Might have the single best resume of all females in the industry.
Exactly.
And I mean that respectfully to them all.
Yeah. Right. And working with personal trainers. And then, I thought Ron McKeefer, who's really spent a lot of time in the strength and conditioning world, college strength coaches, pro strength coaches, and then Don Saladino, who I probably consider have the best personal fitness brand from a perspective of having integrity, doing things right, being a true in the trenches guy, still training plenty of celebrities, doing lots of great things. So I got those guys on, interviewed all 5 of you, and then I thought this would be a good PDF. And then I thought, wow, this would be a good book. But like I talked about before with the self-limiting beliefs I was like, you're not an author. Nobody wants to hear from you. But I overcame that, right? And that Stephen Pressfield calls that the resistance, right? Stephen Pressfield's the author of Do the Work. And those voices in your head that just tell you that you can't do it. And then so I overcame that, but then what happens, Alan, is during the book, they would come back, and there's this whole idea about imposter syndrome, right? Is that oh geez, what am I doing? I mean, nobody wants to hear from me. Blah blah.
I think Paul Newman talks about that in the back of it. I think it's Paul Newman. In the back of his head, he keeps waiting for the tap on the shoulder. They're like, we got the wrong Paul Newman. Sorry, back to the farm for you. And then someone else should have been the successful one.
Yeah, and totally. And so you forget why you did it. Like for when I forgot. Like I wanted to do this to help people, and I want it doesn't matter that like kind of the Tim Ferriss idea, like the interview style book.
Yeah.
And so then there becomes a point when I just kind of wanted to get it over with because there's that editing process and there's the kind of crap.
I think the excitement is the idea. Mm-hmm. Then the next excitement is when the book arrives at your house. But there's a grind to do the work. Is.
And
right?
You brought up a great point because that's when it was. Wednesday. Today's Friday. I got the book. Laree Draper from On Target Publications sent me a book without me. I didn't know it was coming. I thought they were all coming next week. And I was walking out of my building and I saw that I had a package. I picked it up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an author. Like all of a sudden now, now I feel like an author. I had the book in my hands, and it just was really this whole cycle went through of these self-limiting beliefs into feeling good about it, and then feeling like the imposter syndrome, into wanting to get it over with, and kind of being really casual about it, to holy shit, I'm an author, and now I'm like, oh, what's my next book? It's like it's so crazy.
I think there's something there, and I was fortunate enough to be in your talk at Perform Better this year. It's a fantastic talk, by the way, everybody listening. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it'll appear on Perform Better at some point, because they did record it. But that whole idea of the mental game that you have to play with yourself, that I use another phrase. It's like your pure survival instinct. From a reptilian point of view is just to, am I safe? Let me stay in my cave, right? And there's just a part where you just don't want to put anything else out there,
Yeah, and you do have to play games, and there's certain things, and like sometimes certain words from people resonate with you. And Ray Edwards, who's a copywriter out of Seattle, a great guy, and I did some coaching with him, and he said something to me that really helped me, and it was, there's people out there that can only hear your voice. And I think it was inspiring for me, and I think it's really, everybody should remember that. Like, there's people out there that won't resonate with me, don't like what I have to say, don't like what Alan has to say, but they want to hear what you have to say. And that inspired me to like really create more, to say, no, keep creating, keep doing. There's just people out there that can only hear the way Anthony Renna does it.
That's such a powerful phrase. Like, I think it's you found your tribe, right? Like you didn't find your tribe will find you, and they just want to hear more. And trying to get everybody to listen to you is never going to work. But there's people who just want to listen to you.
Yeah.
That's a powerful phrase. I like that.
Yeah.
That may be your next book.
There you go.
So you touched on it, because this type of book, you touched on Tim Ferriss has got a couple of versions of it.
Yep.
I've seen a bunch of them before, where each chapter is another celebrity or a featured expert. So this type of book of like interviews with people, like we're not pretending it was a unique thing. It's been done before. So what was your angle to make it stand out?
What's interesting is there was a little bit of, ready, fire, aim, and saying, just, do this first. Because I'm pretty good about coming up with, because sometimes you have to let it organically come out. So I knew it was a good idea. I knew I had the resources to do it. And so the first thing that I really wanted to do was get a good, diverse group. Like I said, with the first 5, with you and Mike and Geraldine, Ron, and Don, I wanted this kind of a little bit of diversity in terms of what you guys all do. And so I really when I started to come up with the list, I wanted a good cross-section of trainers, strength coaches, chiros, PTs, doctors, people that are, maybe not working with clients anymore as much, right? Like, actually, you're working more with clients again now, but like, like doing more consulting and still owning the gym, or a John Berardi type, or Bill Parisi even, who, guys that are have done just such amazing work, but are, have gotten older and branched out into other things. So I really, number one, I wanted to make sure that I had a good cross section of, female representation, of different job representation. So that was number one. And what happened was, then you have to think about how do I make this different? And then I always start with, okay, what do I not like about books? What do I feel like books aren't doing for me? And I felt like no one's really giving you a push in the right direction with a book. They might give you a summary at the end of the chapter, or tell you, a certain way to do things, but no real hard and fast action steps. So for me, that's what the be likes were, because I started to, as I was doing these things, I thought, what could I do? And then I thought, okay, I'll intersperse my 7 things I learned from the best of the best kind of, and make articles so I can intersperse them among the interviews. Then I didn't love that idea, and I just thought I was doing something, and I was like, I got to talk about this, what Mike's talking about, or what Alan's talking about. And then I was like, yeah, I'll just say, be like Mike. And then be like Alan. And then I thought, oh man, that's the name of the book, Be Like the Best. And after each person, I'll have a be like. And a be like is basically just a challenge or action step based on one takeaway that I got, something that stood out, that I could give an action step to the reader and just say, okay, like, do this, try it for 30 days, try it for 14 days, whatever. They're all different and different type of areas, whether it's goal setting and personal growth or relationship building, just a lot of different topics from that perspective. And let me give them the action steps. And by the way, it wasn't like just do this and you're going to be the greatest thing ever. These are just starters. I want to give people momentum. I think, I don't want to give them the big 20 things to do, although there's 50 interviews. I'm not telling people to do every be like. I'm just saying pick the ones that you feel like you need help with. Do those be likes. This will get you started. I want to give you momentum. So that's how I tried to differentiate it through like really diverse group of people with and having these be likes.
And I think the whole idea with that is this transforms it from a book that's just perhaps entertaining to beyond informational to becoming an actual action guide that people can really use to move their career forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually one of the bonuses is I kind of came up with this idea afterwards too, and we're going to sell it on Amazon as a kind of print on demand just to see if people, respond to it. But it's the Be Like workbook. And basically I'm taking all the Be Likes in the book, putting them together. So we're just going to have a workbook that with, kind of room for notes. So you can start to write things down. And so anybody who orders during the pre-launch is going to get a PDF version of that.
Nice.
But then once we start, so you could pick, let's say you're going to do a couple Be Likes, just print out those 4 or 5 pages from the Be Like, and then there you have it. Can kind of help you push you along. But yeah, so we're doing that as well. And so I think, that's what I really wanted. I wanted to kind of make it concrete and make it easy for people. How can I make it as easy as possible to take those action steps?
And I think that's gonna be the magic that will separate it from everything else. And here's something that I thought of, right? When you asked me to do the interview, we talk so often that I was like, you could just write this yourself without talking to me, right? You talk to me so often, and you speak to some of the best minds in the profession. Like one of the things, your superpower that you have that people don't have is you have the ability to connect with people and on a deep level. But you also, everyone in the industry will take your call, which gives you access to people that a lot of people don't have. But when you're speaking to some of the best minds in fitness, like twice a month, we record. I'm gonna go behind the scenes now. We record the Business of Fitness segment in one big chunk, like once every other month. But we end up talking for an hour and a half that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And record like 10 minutes. But when you're doing this, and you've done mentorships with Exos, with Mark Verstegen, with Mike Boyle, who you talk to all the time, Todd Wright. You were in Results Fitness University. You've coached with Craig Ballantyne. You're in Michael Hyatt's Mastermind program. You have met everybody. Was there anything new that you got out of the interviews that you didn't know just from, like I said, you've already met. If somebody interviews me for the first time and they've never heard of me before, they may get a lot out of it. You and I have talked a couple of thousand times. Like, did you get anything out of these interviews that you weren't expecting?
I definitely did. Number one is it's so cool to see the way the best of the best do things, number one. So it's always helpful to see how other people are doing things, right? I think we can go back to the Ray Edwards quote as well. There's somebody out there that can only hear your voice. So it's also sometimes you have to say it 10 different ways. That's a little bit of the art of coaching, right? Because I'll give you an example with the Cosgroves is the first thing I did in 2011 at your mentorship was the perfect day. Right? That's what you guys did. In the first thing was the perfect day. And okay, then I did that exercise and I got it. I probably took Craig Ballantyne's book at the time. 3 years later, I think he came out with a book in 2014 or 15, The Perfect Day Formula. That's not a new idea either. But the way he said it and did it, and I did it within the book, that started to help me push it a little further too. So I think that's a huge thing is the more, and David Epstein wrote the book Range right now. It's a real popular book talking about being a generalist. The more you get these different ideas from people, a lot of people are saying the same thing, but they're saying it in different ways. So that number one was a huge thing for me, was to kind of get, like, I'll give you an example too with Dana Sanchez. She has a gratitude practice. Now, coaching with Michael Hyatt, big thing, they're always talking about gratitude, always talking about it. And so they focus on you having a gratitude practice. It's so much for me that I actually recorded a 5 or 6 minute gratitude, like my whole life. I like talking about the Stanley Cups that I went to and what a great childhood, and hockey and all the places that I've been to. Like I repeated it and I listened to it on the way to work a lot. So I think that's a great way to do it. But Dana Sanchez had a great way, and we talk about it in the book, of expressing gratitude. At the end of the night, she writes on her bathroom mirror three things she's grateful for. And what's really cool about it is it's the last thing she sees before she goes to bed or thinks about it. So she's going to bed in a positive way. And then when she wakes up, what's the first thing to do? You go to the bathroom, you turn a light on, there's your oh yeah, I'm grateful for those things. Wow. And so it's another great reminder. So it's just all of these different ways. And I think one of the best things, though, is like when you look at kind of, I don't know, not just the way they do it, but people are going deeper with specific topics, right? So when you hear about that, you're able to kind of go, oh man, they're really getting crazy with that. I'm going to try that. And like I said, I really wanted the be likes and to be more about starters. Wasn't saying, hey, I want everybody to write on their bathroom mirror, but we give you a couple different ways to kind of replicate what Dana's doing. Yeah,
but the lesson is the gratitude and the reinforcement of it. And that's the way that Dana uses it. I've heard of a phrase before, I think it was from James Malinchak, who said at a seminar, he said, hands up anybody who's learned something new today, and a bunch of hands go up. And he goes, and hands up if you've been reminded of something that you should be doing. Because sometimes it's the second one, right?
Yeah.
And then I've heard Darren Hardy say, like sometimes you'll hear something, like, for example, like, you should have gratitude. And you're like, yeah, I've heard that. And he said to ask yourself, am I doing that? Have I mastered it? And do my results reflect that I've mastered it? And so I think sometimes when you're like, well, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm like, that's not, the fact that you're hearing it again, maybe you're supposed to hear it again, right?
I agree, yeah. And I think when you just said those two questions, who learned something or who got reminded, for me at this point, I feel like the reminders, because how many times have we said or gone to see a lecture, even with fitness, right? Oh yeah, I gotta do crawling again. I gotta put crawling back into my, I gotta do the overhead squat. I gotta do, start doing some more complexes. I gotta get the dust off the sandbags. I forgot how great they were. I just saw, Josh Henkin at the Perform Better Summit. Man, I forgot how great these things are. So it's very similar. We go through these different phases. I think the reminders are more important, and that's what we, hopefully you'll get out of this book.
I think so too, because I think it's a certain level. The next big idea may not be that big. Like it may just be a refinement of existing things and a little more focus. And it's man, if anybody's listening to you right now, you can tell how excited you are about sharing this. This is like the cheat code to success in the fitness industry, right? It's like the secret manual that's. Right now, it's not a secret because everybody can get a copy.
Yeah, and what's funny is that there's really no secrets in the book like we just talked about. It's a lot of, hey, this is the way they do it. You should try it. And there's plenty. And I feel like with the Be Likes, it's funny because I felt like I'm going to have to apologize to all the contributors only because I don't want someone to feel like that was the only thing we got out of your your interview. It was more about, hey, I also have to match it with 49 other people. So, like, for example, Rachel did a great job about talking about vision boards, but Rachel also talks about journaling. So I got the vision boards from Nikki Metzger that I used for her because she was so excited about it, and I used journaling for Rachel. So, there's all of these different things that you feel like you still need to read the interviews, because there's so much that you can get out of the interviews. But I just wanted something that stuck out.
What's powerful is, and we talked about on the podcast before, the Gary Keller book, The One Thing, that you had the interview and you're trying to narrow it down to your one thing from each interview, but the reader may find a different one thing from everyone, right?
Good point.
You know,
yes.
like they could get their be likes from you, and then in the, you know, I like to think of this as a workbook. You can write notes in the margin. You can highlight stuff. You can take your own notes, and maybe you're writing your own be likes underneath Ant's ones, right? To get like your own. You customize your own education that way.
You totally have to.
I'm pumped. But I'm a big believer in that when a young coach, I would see like perhaps Mike Boyle's programming, and then I would see like West Side Barbell, and it would be so different, or I'd see a bodybuilding routine and it'd be so different, I just end up in confusion, and you're trying to pick a team, right? And then as you grow, you start seeing, you know, the differences are not as big as I first thought, and there's a lot of similarities here. Like everybody trains hard, everybody lifts free weights, everybody does, you know, like bodybuilders train muscles, powerlifters train lifts, and Mike trains movements, but those movements, muscles, and lifts can start to look the same, and you start to see a thread amongst success. Was there any thread or through line with the interviews that you were able to pick up on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few like we could talk about almost in terms of like my lecture at Perform Better, right? The 7 things I learned, and I talk about, you know, like everybody seemed to really know their mission. Everybody had some kind of goal-setting process. Everybody understood the importance or the impact that they're making on their clients' lives. But I think really more important, what I actually really learned from this book was the intention and being intentional about this stuff. And so, you know, you talked about the one thing, but you have to be intentional about thinking about what's the legacy that you do want to leave, right? That's almost like the start of it. And you have to be intentional about what are your core values, right? Like sit down and write them down. You know, that is exactly what you guys do at the Results Fitness University program. And then what's going to start to happen is you're going to start to get some goals out of that, right? And so you start to think about your goals because, you know, you talked about your legacy. And, you know, Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy wrote a book called Living Forward. And they actually ask you to, you know, you formulate your eulogy, you know, to talk about that. So it's being intentional about writing these things down and thinking about them, because what's going to happen next? You're going to lead to your goals. And then, so where do you start with goals? What do you want your perfect life to look like? What do you want your life to look like in 10 years? You write these things down. You're intentional about them. What's 3 years look like? And we talked about the one thing, right? This is exactly how the one thing works. What's my life going to have to look like in 3 years in order to get to my 10-year goals? What's my life going to have to look like in 1 year from today in order to start moving towards the legacy that I want to leave? And then what can I do in the next 3 months? What are my 3 big goals? What are my big rocks that I want to get done? I'm going to do it in the next 90 days. That's going to move me closer. It's going to get the needle moved. And then what do? Right? It's like the one thing. What can I do in the next week? What are 3 things I can do to get closer to my 3-month goals that are going to get me closer to my yearly goals, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And then what can I do tomorrow that's going to get me closer to this week's goals? So it really is being intentional. And the same thing with, you know, having an impact. You know, you saw the story about my client, Ann Silver, and the impact that I had on her. What a
powerful story.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that sometimes we don't want to be conscious about it. Like we just want to say, oh, it's got to happen. No, look for it. Be intentional. Look for it. Remind yourself all the time. That's why writing down what you're grateful for every day, reminding yourself of your whys, writing down your wins. These are all things that this stuff starts to come out about, you know, what you're doing and the impact that you're having. And these are all really important things. Same thing with relationships. A lot of people talk about, oh, I don't want to network or whatever. You know, don't think of it like networking, but keep building relationships. Go deeper. And we talk a lot about that in the book. You have to be intentional about it. You have to say once a month, I'm going to visit a coach that I don't know. Once a month, I'm going to have
Yeah.
coffee. Once a week, I'm going to have coffee with somebody, an old friend, or somebody in the business, or whatever it may be. You have to be intentional about it. You can't just sit there and let things come to you, right? What's that quote about the future? The best way to predict the future is to create it. Right? So
Yeah.
it's really about being intentional. To me, that was the common thread. The best of the best are intentional about what they're doing.
I think that's the closing line for this interview. The best of the best are intentional at what they're doing. Anthony, thank you for letting me do a hostile takeover of the Strength Coach podcast. Congratulations on the book. I'm so proud to have been involved. I'm so proud to know you. Everybody's listening to this. You make sure you get your copy. Whenever I see you with your copy, I expect to see notes in the margin, and I expect to see you making forward progress. And thanks again for everybody listening. I am Anthony's 15th favorite guest of all time on the Strength Coach podcast, Alwyn Cosgrove. And that's it from me.
Alwyn, as my favorite male guest from the Northern Hemisphere who speaks English but is from a foreign country.
And immigrated to the United States.
Yes, exactly. I appreciate you doing this, buddy. Thank you. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 265 of the Strength Coach podcast. Thanks to Alwyn Cosgrove. Thanks to Chris Poirier and the folks over at Perform Better for always supporting whatever I do. Guys, go to belikethebest.com to get more information about all this stuff and to order the book. I know you're going to get something out of it if you do. I promise you. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.